Theresa Caputo's terrible circumstances on Long Island Medium. A destructive tornado has seriously damaged Theresa Caputo's home, who is a Long Island medium famous. The entire area has been cut off from the outside world, and his house has been largely devastated by the intense rain and wind. The fact that Theresa's parents are inside the house with her makes it even more terrifying. She is waiting for quick assistance and is really concerned about this scenario. Theresa filmed a brief live video in which she impassionedly begged for the prompt dispatch of a rescue squad in an attempt to draw the attention of her admirers and local authorities. Theresa is now the center of attention, and the main concern is when she and her family will be able to get to safety. That afternoon, the sky over Long Island had taken on a disconcerting gray tint. Theresa Caputo, the Long Island medium, believed that the storm warnings they had gotten the day before included the heavy rain and gusty gusts. Within an hour, however, the ground appeared to vibrate beneath her feet as the gusts intensified into a terrible roar. Her neighborhood was being torn apart by a tornado, which is uncommon in the area, but not impossible. Her elderly parents had come to stay with her for a few days, and Theresa had been at home with them. Despite his advanced age, her father was seated by the window, mumbling about the weather's peculiar appearance. Her mother had been sleeping on the couch, frail and in need of attention. The three of them paused for a second when the emergency warning rang over their phones, realizing that the situation was much worse than they had anticipated. The storm was upon them in a matter of minutes. Debris pounded the windows and walls, and the wind howled like a freight train. Theresa took hold of her parents' hands and led them swiftly to the basement's reinforced room, the safest area she had set up for emergencies years prior. However, the wrath of the storm hit the house squarely before they could descend there. The roof trembled wildly. Beams and shingles tore apart like tearing paper. Glass flew across the living room as windows broke. As her father attempted to steady the door frame, Theresa used her arms to protect her mother. Trees cracking, metal bending, wood splintering. The noise was terrible. Silence fell when the worst of it was over, but it was dread rather than serenity. Theresa had spent years living in a lovely house, but it was now in ruins. Whole rooms became impassable due to fallen beams, and water seeped in via ceiling cracks. Outside, big trees had fallen across driveways, obstructing any possibility of escape, and the streets were flooded. Fear made Theresa's chest constrict. Her parents relied on her, so she wasn't alone. The woman who had used her spiritual skill to soothe innumerable mourning families felt helpless for the first time in a long time. She was aware that she needed to move fast. She used social media, her only remaining tool, since she had no means to get in touch with emergency responders directly because the roads were shut off and the phone lines were down. She opened her phone and went live, her hands shaking. The world saw a terrible and unvarnished picture. Her eyes were red from suppressing tears, and her blonde hair was wet from the rain that soaked through the roof's cracks. Despite her trembling voice, she conveyed urgency and despair in her words. "They've ruined my house. I'm here with my folks. We need assistance, we're stuck. Send a rescue squad, please, if anyone can see this. We are unable to go. Please." Although her plea was brief, it was clearly filled with emotion. Her video started making the rounds on several platforms in a matter of minutes. After witnessing her provide comfort to bereaved families, her admirers were now united in their worry for her safety. The hashtags #PrayForTheresa and #RescueTheCaputos started to gain popularity. The sheer amount of texts alerted local officials, who soon recognized the gravity of the situation. Meanwhile, the waiting was agonizing inside the destroyed house. Every fracture in the ceiling and every gust of wind that swept through the damaged walls made Theresa's heart race, but she tried to be strong for her parents. "We've been through storms before," her father attempted to calm her. Theresa could feel the tension in his eyes as he said, "They'll come for us." Taking Theresa's hand as if it were her lifeline, her mother sat silently. Days seemed to stretch into hours. Rescue was all but impossible outside as the storm continued to rage periodically. However, in addition to admirers, Theresa's live stream had inspired nearby residents and volunteer rescuers who were familiar with the area. Armed with flashlights, chainsaws, and an old pickup vehicle, a small group of locals braved the floodwaters and fallen trees. Their goal was to get to the Caputos. Theresa nearly passed out of relief as the sound of voices finally pierced the darkness. With their beams piercing the night, the rescuers yelled. In the end, Theresa and her family ventured out into the stormlit night after exerting themselves to move debris and lead her elderly parents through the damaged building. Her eyes filled with tears at the sight of her ruined home, but she also mumbled a prayer of gratitude as she turned to face her parents, who were standing next to her, uninjured and alive. Later, news sites covered the incident, lauding Theresa's fast thinking in using her position to call for assistance, as well as the courage of the rescue crew. Her anguished plea was captured on camera, and it became a symbol of resiliency in the face of tragedy, reminding people that even people who appear to be bigger than life are susceptible to the wrath of nature. As the neighborhood rallied to rebuild in the days that followed, Theresa frequently remarked, "I always learn from Spirit that love is what sustains us, and that life is valuable. I felt the love of my parents, my neighbors, and the strangers who hurried to help me more than ever that night when I believed we might not make it out. And I will always remember that." Her house might be repaired, but the storm would always be remembered. However, in typical Theresa manner, she turned her suffering into a calling, becoming not only the Long Island medium but also a survivor whose tale served as a reminder to the world of the power of hope, community, and family. But the audience's thrilled faces were reflected by the warm, brilliant studio lights of Windy City Live. Everyone had come for something really special, not simply a discussion show. The Long Island medium, Theresa Caputo, was the special visitor on this particular day. In an attempt to communicate with their loved ones on the other side, people had traveled from neighboring communities and even from out of state. The room exploded in cheers as Theresa took the stage, sporting her trademark large blonde hair, glittering nails, and self-assured Long Island accent. The audience laughed, but there was a nervous energy in the air. Everyone silently hoping, maybe she'll come to me. She waved, grinned, and said, "Okay, Spirit's already yelling at me, so we're not wasting any time." Theresa tilted her head, as though listening to something unseen, and stood motionless for a moment. She said, "The father of someone is coming forward. He is discussing fishing, specifically lake fishing. Did any of you lose a father who used to take you fishing?" A woman's fingers flew to her lips as she gasped in the second row. She held up her hand slowly. "It's me," she muttered. Theresa approached and gestured toward her. "It's your father, my dear. He is showing me a really worn-out, rusted metal tackle box. Do you get that?" Tears clouded the woman's eyes. Indeed, one side of his green tackle box was dented. He didn't ever replace it. There was a collective murmur among the spectators. Theresa gave a gentle smile. "He claims that although he now fishes on the opposite side, he still does so. He is bringing this up because he is aware that you think of him whenever you see a lake. He wants you to grin instead of cry anymore. Tell her I'm proud," he adds. The woman mouthed, "Thank you," and nodded while gripping her chest. Theresa continued. She walked across to the opposite side of the crowd. "Who lost a younger brother now? He is speaking up quickly, as if he is eager to speak. Does anyone here understand what he means when he says motorcycle accident?" A man in the rear row held up his hand tremblingly. "That's my brother. 2 years ago, he lost his life in a motorcycle accident." Theresa and he looked at each other. "You blame yourself," he tells me. "Maybe he wouldn't have gone out if I had called him that night. You persuaded yourself." "Knock it off," he says. "Are you aware of that?" The man's mouth quivered. "Indeed. I've been thinking that every day since he passed away." Theresa gave a nod. "He wants you to understand that there was nothing you could have done to prevent that evening. He claims that he no longer wants you to live with guilt." He also displays a black leather jacket with patches on it. "Was his jacket kept by you?" He dabbed at his eyes. "Yes, it is still in my closet. I simply retain it, I never wear it." Then realize that when you see that jacket, it's his soul greeting you. With others wiping away their own tears, The audience gave a gentle clap. Theresa stopped and covered her heart with her hand. Spirit provides us with what we need, not what we desire, as I often remark. However, they're being particularly giving today. She turned once more. A granny who made cookies passed away here. Chocolate chip. She also keeps bringing out a tin box.
Who is that?
In the first row, a young woman raised her hand. That's my grandmother. She never left home without a cookie tin. Theresa smiled. You still sneak cookies late at night, don't you, she says. Through her tears, the young woman laughed. Indeed. I assume nobody was aware of that. Honey, she is aware. She also claims that she is always present when you bake cookies. She is pleased that you preserved her recipe. There were gasps, tears, and laughter across the studio. There was reverent silence in place of the typical talk show banter, and even the hosts of Windy City Live were watching in awe. Theresa clasped her hands. Spirit always wants us to heal, you see. They don't want us to be mired in sorrow. They want us to live, to rejoice, to cherish our love for one another. Love is altered but never dies. The crowd applauded once more, and some got up to give her a brief standing ovation. Theresa smiled warmly and inhaled deeply. And, people, that's just part one. I'm not leaving, and Spirit has a lot more to say. Theresa braced herself for further signals from beyond as the audience cheered, anticipating the next round of connections. But after years on screen as the Long Island medium, Theresa Caputo had taken a break from the spotlight to quietly concentrate on her family, personal development, and self-discovery. However, there was instant excitement when it was revealed that she will be making a comeback to television in a brand new series called Theresa Caputo, Raising Spirits. Her vivid hair, distinctive Long Island wit, and clear ability to convey messages from beyond delighted those who had missed her. Naturally, The View was among her first major engagements because the press was unable to quit talking about it. The studio was buzzing on the morning of her presentation. The audience was buzzing with anticipation, producers were rushing about, and even The View co-hosts were a bit too excited. Theresa wasn't your typical celebrity guest. She had an aura of the otherworldly, a presence that had people wondering if their departed loved ones were waiting to talk next to them. The audience erupted in cheers as she took the platform. Theresa waved her friendly smile while wearing a stylish black gown, brilliant jewelry, and her signature blonde hair styled sky-high. She was greeted warmly by the co-hosts. It has been a long time, Theresa, one of them remarked. You've been absent from our screens. Tell us about Raising Spirits, your new show. With her endearing Long Island accent, Theresa leaned forward. First of all, I want to thank you for having me. I also missed you all. The goal of Raising Spirits is to go beyond simply reuniting viewers with their loved ones and demonstrating how healing happens even after the cameras have stopped. Not just the part in the reading where someone laughs or cries, but the entire trip is what I want viewers to see. It has to do with how spirit messages can genuinely change people's lives. The audience applauded, but Theresa abruptly stopped speaking before she could continue. A woman seated in the front row caught her attention. Theresa's hand went up a little. All right, I'm here to discuss the show, but I can already feel the spirit beckoning me. She laughed and added, This happens, I can't help it. A man who appears to be a father figure is stepping forward. He seemed to have passed quite suddenly, which could be related to his heart. Does that resonate with you, my love? Tears clouded the woman's eyes. Yes, that is my father. He passed away from a heart attack. The whole studio fell silent. Theresa's voice grew softer. Even though he was unable to reply, he wishes to thank you for holding his hand while he was in the hospital. He claims to have listened to you and have departed knowing how much you cherished him. The woman let out a gasp. I took that action. I told him he could leave. Reaching out from the stage, Theresa took the woman's hand. And now he's saying thank you. He is expressing his pride in your perseverance despite your feelings of brokenness. You are surrounded by him every day. Even the View hosts dabbed at their eyes as the audience burst into tears and cheers. This is why people love you, Theresa, one of them added. It's healing, not just a spectacle. Theresa gave a soft smile. Raising Spirits is all about that. People mistakenly believe it to be merely a reading, but it's actually a voyage of discovering that love never dies. That bond never dies. Theresa described how the new series would show viewers behind the scenes of her readings, capturing not only the emotional responses, but also the aftermath, including families getting back together, people finding closure, and even doubters being shocked by how accurate her messages were. Spirit, however, had more to say, as usual. Theresa was attracted to one of the cameramen during a commercial break. She turned abruptly to face him when the cameras returned. "I apologize, but I am unable to overlook this." A young man steps forward. His enthusiasm is similar to that of a brother. "He keeps displaying an automobile crash to me. Do you get that?" The cameraman was clearly startled and froze. He nodded slowly. "When we were teenagers, my brother died in a car accident." Theresa's voice grew softer, once more. "He's giving me the impression that you're harboring remorse, as if you believed you might have prevented him that evening. Let that go," he says. "It wasn't your fault," he says. "Every time you go behind the wheel, he's with you. He desires for you to live fearlessly." The cameraman grinned despite the tears welling up in his eyes. "Thank you. That guilt has been with me all my life." The audience, thrilled by the unexpected occasion, cheered once more. The hosts concluded with their parting remarks at the end of the show. "Thank you, Theresa, for reminding us that your gift is about hope, healing, and connection rather than just messages. We are very excited to see Raising Spirits." Theresa stood, clearly moved, her hand over her heart. "I'm grateful. I want everyone who watches to understand that love never truly ends, even in our darkest hours." There was a feeling in the studio that something significant had just occurred as she waved to the crowd. Not simply entertainment or television, but a reminder that our relationships with the people we love are stronger than ever and will last beyond this life. Therefore, Theresa Caputo's TV comeback was more than just her reappearance. It was about sending messages from the afterlife, providing light to the living, and reaffirming her status as the Long Island medium. But the crowd started to assemble inside a community theater on a chilly Long Island autumn evening so that Theresa Caputo could do one of her live group readings. People arrived eagerly, clinging to hopes that their loved ones might survive. However, a man named Daniel sat in the very front row with his face set in skepticism and his arms crossed tightly. Daniel didn't believe in God. He had long disregarded psychics, mediums, and anyone who claimed to be able to communicate with the dead. He taught science at a university and was renowned for his incisive reasoning and fact-based approach. Only at the insistence of his sister Emily had he attended the show. Emily yearned for even the smallest consoling message after losing her baby 2 years prior. Daniel rolled his eyes in private at the thought, but he assured her he would go with her. Theresa Caputo entered the stage as the lights went down, her trademark long blonde hair gleaming in the spotlights. The audience exploded in cheers. As she described what was going to happen, her Long Island accent filled the room with a warm smile. She paced slowly around the platform and remarked, "I never know who's going to come through. Your family members simply take over. I am merely the vehicle. It's all tricks," Daniel said in a whisper as he bent in Emily's direction. "Reading cold. You'll see." Theresa's excitement quickly changed, though. She paused in the middle of her statement, closed her eyes, and cocked her head slightly in an apparent listening position. "All right," she replied quietly. "A young man is coming forward. He tells me that his death was unexpected and caused by an accident. He's also showing me something related to a car." Emily raised her hand. Her eyes filled with tears. "That's Jason, my nephew," she muttered. Daniel tensed. Emily's son, Jason, was also his nephew. When he passed away in a terrible car accident, he was just 19 years old. Daniel didn't want to reopen that wound. Theresa gestured toward Emily. "Yes, he is with you, my love. I want you to know that I'm okay," he says. "He is displaying a guitar to me." "Was he a musician?" Emily took a sharp breath. "Yes, he spent every evening in his room playing the guitar. His passion was that." Theresa gave a soft smile. "I still play, Mom," he says. "You hear me in the music you hear on the radio at random. I'm sending you love with that." Emily put her palm to her chest and sobbed. Daniel, on the other hand, moved uneasily. Something in Theresa's words triggered memories he attempted to suppress, but he wanted to brush it off and call it a coincidence. Then Theresa's eyes went straight to Daniel. "He's pointing directly at you, sir." "Uncle Danny," he says. "Does it make sense to you?" Daniel stopped. Not many people in this theater were familiar with its moniker. Only Jason used to say it with a light-hearted regard. Theresa went on, her tone firm but sympathetic. "Uncle Danny, quit blaming yourself," Jason adds. "You were powerless to prevent what transpired." Daniel gasped. His face reddened. He had kept the fact that he privately held himself responsible for Jason's murderous secret from everyone, even Emily. It was he who had urged Jason to embrace his independence by driving out that evening rather than staying at home studying. The accident happened a few hours later. Under his breath, Daniel muttered, "How could she know that?" Theresa's voice grew softer. "Uncle Danny, you showed me so much love," Jason says. "I want you to get over your guilt and resume your normal life. You've stopped. You ceased to laugh. You lost all faith. I don't want you to do that. I'm content. I am at liberty. I also want you to be free." The air was heavy with passion, and the audience was silent. Tears welled up in Daniel's eyes. He had been carrying that guilt about like a shadow for years, never letting anyone know how much it affected him. It was as though a door had just opened in his heart as he heard Jason's voice through Theresa. Theresa touched her own chest. "He's displaying a watch to me. Was it you who gave him the watch, or him who gave it to you?" Daniel's hand shook. He had Jason's favorite wristwatch, which Daniel had held onto since the funeral, in his pocket. He had kept it a secret from everyone, including his sister. "It was his," he muttered, fighting back tears. "I hold on to it." Theresa gave a nod. "He is aware." "Uncle Danny, that's me hugging you back when you hold my watch," he says. Daniel broke at that very moment. Raw passion took the place of his cynicism. Emily encircled him in her arms while he sobbed freely and trembled. Something changed inside Daniel for the first time in years, a whisper of calm, a release of pain. "He wants me to tell you both. I love you more than you'll ever know," Theresa muttered, closing her eyes once more. "He says he's always with you, so try not to think on the accident and instead focus on the love, laughter, and music." Theresa received a standing ovation from the audience after the reading, but Daniel hardly noticed. Tears were still running down his face as he sat calmly. He stepped outside into the clear night air after the show, with the stars above him gleaming dimly. His voice was shaking as he turned to Emily. "Perhaps there is more than we are aware of. Jason might actually be with us." Emily grinned through her tears as she gripped his hand. "Tonight I sensed him. Did you not?" Daniel gave a slow nod. His heart felt lighter for the first time in years. Something had shifted inside of him, even though he didn't have all the answers and might never fully comprehend. He returned home that evening, put Jason's watch on his bedside table and muttered, "Thank you, kiddo." Daniel was able to sleep for the first time in a long time without feeling guilty, and he believed he heard the soft strum of a guitar in the silent stillness of his dreams, Jason's method of telling him that love never fades. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Mina, and I hope you're having a great day. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the video.